share my screen. All right. Can everyone see that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So in the chat box,
Yep.
Just go ahead and give me 1 through 5. Right. I'll give you a few minutes to get this done while we're waiting for people to kind of show up. First day is always a bit rough. So full name and major. Just briefly, why are you taking this class? You can be honest here, that's fine. If it's just required for your major, you can put that if you don't have any other reasons. Biggest concerns or fears about this class, especially in the online format. It's a bit different, of course. Favorite species, and then what you think the worst environmental disaster in history was. Right, let's see here. So let's see, biggest concerns. We got final exam. Making sure you get all the info in a format that's different from the way I'm used to learning. Yeah, that'll be a challenge for us, but I think we're going to be okay. And if it's not working, let me know. Getting behind, tests. Being able to memorize everything. Well, I can.
Professor, where are we posting these?
In the chat.
Oh, is the chat loaded then? Or is it only for you? Because I can't see any of these.
Can anyone else see these?
Yeah, I'm seeing all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see
All
them.
right. So in your little bar down at the bottom, right here, just click on this conversation bubble. That should bring it. All right. So being able to memorize everything, yeah, I wouldn't worry about that. This is not a memorizing class. Save that for anatomy. Not having social interaction. Okay, that's going to be on all of us. It's definitely harder, but that really does help with learning. And so I'm going to try my best to have opportunities for social interaction in here.
What is you doing?
What's that? Oh, somebody wasn't muted, I suppose. Yeah, so I'm seeing quite a few concerns about the online aspect. amount of time, and exams. Okay. I'm also seeing a lot of love for dogs. That's good. Dogs are wonderful. Grizzly bear. Dude, no. It's terrible.
Grizzly bears are cool.
They're scary, though. Yeah.
If they're so scary, how do you argue with their round ears?
Have you like seen one close up before? It's terrifying. It's like pee your pants situation. I don't like it. It's the claws and the giant size. Homo species.
Forget. We're generation, what? Millennials and Z? We all want to die. And if we get a pet a big fuzzy thing while doing it,
You know,
it's a win-win.
heading's probably not the word I would use. Stabbing or punching, sure. I'm a millennial also, so I'm with you there.
Just
Okay.
rub their ears. It'd be a good way.
Is that actually a stereotype of millennials?
Oh yeah.
Well,
It's a stereotype of like the past 2 generations because we're all poor.
yeah, it's we're the first 2 generations to have worse financial outlooks than our parents in the history of this country. Home ownership is all-time low. Things aren't super awesome for us.
I
So
wrote my last essay on finances for the older generations, and currently around 75% of the nation's wealth is held by people above the age of 65.
yeah. Well, don't worry, they're all gonna die soon.
Heck yeah! Heart attacks.
This is going off the rails really fast.
This is gonna be
All
an
right.
amazing class. I don't know about you.
Oh, I love this class. All right, well, I'll share my answers to these questions. You can fill yours in as you go. And get back in here. Okay, so I'm Dr. San. My reason for being in this class is because I actually really like this class. And I think it's really fun, the organismal side of biology. I'm really into that, and ecology, evolution. I chose this wording pretty carefully. I'm here to facilitate your education, not to like teach you, because your education is yours. I want you to have ownership of it. So I'm here to help however I can. Whether that's you need, since this is online, normally I wouldn't do this, but if you need an 8 p.m. meeting to ask me questions, I can do that. We've got Emma Duke, our TA, that will be leading study sessions. I'm here to help however I can. My concerns, given to me by teaching this class quite a few times at this point, is that some of you probably aren't used to critical thinking, especially in the sciences, and you're more interested in kind of memorizing answers and getting answers right for a test. This class won't be like that, so it may take some getting used to. Also, a lot of people think because it's introductory, it'll be a blow-off. If you talk to students who have taken this class with me before, they've probably scared you. It's not going to be a blow-off. I'm not going to make it impossibly hard just for my own kicks. I'm not into that. Favorite organism is that dog right there. His name is Indiana Jones. And my worst environmental disaster, in my opinion, is not any of these. This is what people tend to think of when you talk about environmental disaster, right? Nuclear holocaust, making a gigantic blizzard that destroys Tokyo. Okay. Major pollution, oil fields burning. No, I think the worst one is this right here. Does anyone know what this represents? Just shout it out, because while I'm doing the PowerPoint slides, I can't actually see the chat bar.
The
Try-
electron
Isn't it
transport chain?
just
It'll lag.
photo system or photo? What am I trying to say?
You're so close.
Photosynthesis?
Photosynthesis. Oh my
That's
gosh.
the-
I
Yeah.
forgot.
Photosynthesis. Okay. I think that was a major misstep in the history of the Earth. Obviously, for us, it's great, but it was a super disaster. And that's because way back when, the early Earth was a really happy place. Sulfuric acid, lots of methane, low oxygen in the atmosphere, ultra hot. This is pretty good for life. It's definitely good conditions for life to form. How come? Anyone have a guess?
Is it because simple life can survive conditions? The simpler, the better.
Yeah, kind of the simpler the better, but there's a key element that's more or less kind of missing from the early Earth, especially in the atmosphere. One that we know and love now.
Is it oxygen?
Oxygen.
Yeah, oxygen. Oxygen is a problem for things like DNA, and that's because it's hyperreactive. Okay. You've heard of redox reactions, no doubt, right? So oxidation is when oxygen strips electrons from things, and it's really, really, really good at just taking electrons from other elements. That's why it bonds with things so readily. Oxygen by itself is ultra reactive. Okay, you can cut an apple open, it starts turning brown within seconds. That's oxidation. You also see an oxidized boat in that image right there. Okay. Anyone know the chemical formula for bleach? Sodium hypochlorite is the name. So it's similar to salt. It's got an extra oxygen. Okay, that hypo. It's got that extra oxygen on there, and so this is why bleach kills things. It's because it has a free oxygen that's ready to go off and strip electrons from everything. Okay. Now, in the history of Earth, oxygen wasn't around. Simple life forms are being pretty happy. But the main source of energy, aside from like hydrothermal vents and proton gradients, that kind of stuff, obviously sunlight. And so cyanobacteria pops up and it finds a way to utilize sunlight and carbon dioxide, which is really abundant. And the product of photosynthesis is oxygen and, anyone?
Is it water?
Yeah. All right, so take CO2, some solar energy, break it up, and what we get is oxygen as a waste product. This is a problem, especially for those early cyanobacteria. Okay. These are known as autotrophs. We'll see them real soon when we start learning about these nutritional groups. But the autotroph just means getting your carbon from a mineral source, so CO2. Right. So here's early Earth's atmosphere on the right. Okay, you can see mostly nitrogen and carbon dioxide, some hydrogen and water vapor. Okay. Fast forward to today, it was about the same amount of nitrogen, but most of the carbon dioxide has been replaced by oxygen. This is because of those photosynthesizers, taking CO2, turning it into oxygen, and building sugars out of that carbon. Okay. The problem here is that if oxygen is toxic to you and you're a photosynthesizer, product of photosynthesis is oxygen. Okay, so they're pumping out oxygen as a waste product into their environment. So the early oceans are just filled with cyanobacteria, and all of them are taking CO2 slowly out of the atmosphere and poisoning their environment, the ocean, with oxygen. So why didn't they all just die? They're basically pouring bleach.
Would it be because
Sorry, I cut you off there.
Did some organisms
yeah.
evolve to use oxygen?
Okay, yeah, some organisms did evolve to use oxygen. That's blatantly obvious now, like us, right? Eukaryotes and stuff. But that took a while, right? If the oceans were like green and purple, right, filled with cyanobacteria, and they're just pooping out bleach all over the place. Why didn't it kill them? Here's a hint.
Is it because the oxygen went to the top, kind of went up into the atmosphere?
See, yeah, that's a good thought, but it's actually the opposite.
So it went down farther into the ocean. Cyanobacteria lives at the top, so it was poisoning the bottom layer. Cyanobacteria continued to live.
If that oxygen was around in the water column, with ocean currents and volcanism and stuff, it'd be churned up and brought into contact with them. The only thing that saved them was that it was scrubbed out of the ocean by iron. So here we see two clay soils. They've got a lot of iron in them. It's one of the most abundant elements on Earth. Okay. On the left is oxidized. On the right is reduced. Okay. So here, this has been like under stagnant water. Okay. So oxygen can't permeate through very well, and the iron becomes reduced gray iron color. When you take iron and throw some salt water on it, it starts looking like that boat. It starts turning red. That's rust. All right, so taking a look at this, these are some of the oldest rocks on Earth from Australia. We find these banded iron formations. Okay, this is really old rock. And looking at this graph here, I'll try to explain this to you. The percent of cumulative O2 production, so from 0 to 100, okay. This is oxygen over time, years before present. So going here, we find the continental red beds. That's referring to this banded iron formation. Okay, those show up, and only here do we start getting oxygen in the atmosphere. That's a long time. It's more than 1 billion years. More than 1 billion years that cyanobacteria were pooping out bleach and suffering no consequence for it. How'd they make it that long? And then why did suddenly atmospheric O2 really start to ramp up?
Well, just thinking about it, wouldn't it be a delusion? So, they continue to do this over and over again, and eventually it just fills up until there's no place left for it to go. But
Yeah,
taking it
that's it. Yeah.
incredibly.
Yeah, there's this reaction that's wanting to happen. There's iron and there's oxygen. Those two want to get together real bad. Okay, so if iron's present, non-oxidized, the oxygen's going to go straight to it. Okay, so it's kind of getting scrubbed out of the water column. Okay, you can see that we've got banded iron formations. These are the underwater at the time, are red. Then we start getting some atmospheric O2, and we start seeing the continental rocks, those that haven't been underwater. Those start getting red. And so essentially all the oxygen in the ocean is getting taken up by iron and then dropping out as rust down to the bottom of the ocean floor, not making these banded formations. Then it runs out of oxygen, or runs out of iron to bond with, and it's capable of going out into the atmosphere, and it starts bonding with the iron in the atmosphere, in the continental above water rocks. Once all those are oxidized, boom, we get this sharp increase of oxygen. Okay. So this was a disaster waiting to happen. Once they ran out of iron, these things were pretty upset. right? These cyanobacteria, they're polluting their environment, thinking nothing wrong is ever going to happen, or it's like a billion years away, no need to worry. But the day did come, okay? So the oxygen was bound to that reduced iron, runs out of iron to bind to, and suddenly it's in the atmosphere, and it's killing stuff, big time, okay? This is humans basically doing the same thing in 1920, it's Pittsburgh, long before the EPA or the Clean Air Act or anything like that, basically just killing themselves. Okay? But we've come a long way since then. Just kidding, not really. This is Salt Lake Valley in the winter, right? We all know this. So we're still doing it. It's not super great. People who live in the valley have an estimated 9 to 10 months shorter lifespan than those above the inversion or in other states without the air pollution. So it's not good for us. Same thing for cyanobacteria. Okay, things got bad pretty quick. It was an exponential rise in atmospheric oxygen because there's trillions and trillions of these things pumping out oxygen every time it's light. Okay. So the Earth's atmosphere is completely toxic, and we get this massive extinction event. Okay. You're familiar with extinction events, right? There was the, the dinosaur one with the asteroid, all that kind of stuff. Earth almost went completely sterile at this point. Okay, huge die-off because now they're just swimming around in bleach, essentially. How did they escape? How are we here?
They adapted.
Some of them. Most of them died. Terrible deaths. I don't think cyanobacteria can actually be sad or anything. They don't have brains. But if they were conscious, they would have had a really miserable death. Okay. All that pollution that's polluting our Earth is still around. All that oxygen in the atmosphere. But there were mutations that happened to basically scrub the oxygen out of the internal cell environment, to keep it away from the DNA. Okay. Oxygen molecule, known as a free radical, you may have heard that, like drink green tea, it has antioxidants, it scrubs free radicals out of, that's what we're talking about here. We're trying to get rid of free roaming oxygen. Okay, so there were mutations that occurred in certain proteins that kind of helped bind to the oxygen and kind of scrub it out from inside the cell. And those same proteins began to kind of make use of it. And so now we have oxidative respiration. This is what you and I use to get energy, okay? We're burning carbon, quite literally. Fire is just oxidation. We're taking carbon and using oxygen to burn it and get ATP from that, okay? So if you can survive in oxygen, suddenly you're way better off because you get a ton more ATP. Does anyone know how much ATP you get from like fermentation without oxygen? Just the old glycolysis.
It's just 2, right?
2. What about with oxygen? As a terminal,
26.
it varies from species to species, but it's like from 24 to 32, more than 2. Okay. So you get a lot more oxygen per molecule of carbon, per sugar, essentially, if you can use oxygen as that terminal electron receptor, right? So you're just basically trying to move electrons down this pathway. Right? And you learned all about these in your previous class. I don't know if you have any memory of the fermentation pathway, lactic acid cycle, Krebs cycle, any of that. We're not going to focus on them too much in here. So, moral of this story is that the history of Earth, especially life on Earth, is just full of events just like this, where conditions change and it makes certain mutations more or less advantageous. So we're talking about evolution, how organisms, species, and populations especially, can adapt over time to changing conditions. So this story I just told you I could have just made it up and you're believing me like a bunch of idiots writing it down. How do we know any of this? I didn't just make it up, by the way.
I mean, we see the rock layers, and I mean, you just told us about the iron bands, so that kind of is a good indicator.
That's a good one. That doesn't prove the story, but it corroborates it. So we've got the geological evidence that matches perfectly with this story. What else?
There's also DNA and evolutionary evidence for it.
Yes. I'm glad somebody said that right up front. You know, being that this is a biology class, we're going to be talking a lot about that side of things. Okay. Geology, nuclear chemistry, right? Like radioisotope dating. So physicists help us with that. Paleontology, that falls under biology sometimes. So we've got the fossil record that backs this up. We've got biochemical fossils, you know, showing the traces of those little proteins like rubisco that help scrub oxygen for photosynthesis. Those turning up in the right age rocks, in those little oxidated bands. Okay, so we've got geology backing this up, radiometric dating. We got our fossil record. When I say fossil record, usually students think of dinosaur bones, and that's obviously the most famous, but we also have fossil biochemistry. Okay, so we can go in and do NMDR or mass spec on these tiny little grains of rock and see what biochemistry was actually present there. But the one, as you suspected, that we're going to spend most of our time with is phylogenetics and comparative genetics. So we're going to be looking at phylogenies a whole lot in this class. Our next lesson will be about how to read them, how to make them, that kind of stuff, because every other chapter from week 2 and 3 on will be using phylogenies. Okay, so we need to learn those. Okay, any questions so far? Get out of here and come to the little chat box.
I just want to make sure, can everyone see the 2 additional channels on Teams? There should be the general and then one called live stream and then one for study sessions. So
I was not able to. It took me 25 minutes to get into this meeting.
There's
Okay.
3 little dots.
I can see them.
Okay,
Yeah, I can see them.
they should be there for
I
everyone.
can see him.
I'm not sure why I wasn't able to see them. The only way I could join was through the email.
Okay, there's 3 little dots next to it. Let me just bring this over. Maybe I can show you. Okay, so if you click on that, it should show you the extra channels right there. I know they're available for you, just you may have to kind of play around in there to find them. Okay. So, questions so far about material or what this class is about? I'm about to do the going through the syllabus bit of things. So if you got syllabus questions, we'll cover them in a second, but I want to give you a chance to ask me anything so far.
I just had a quick question about what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
So this might be kind of dumb, but is there a reason why certain areas like Moab have more oxidized rocks than other areas in the world?
Most iron-bearing rocks nowadays above ground are going to be oxidized. To be reduced and to have iron show that gray color, it's going to have to be like underwater in an anoxic environment. So
Okay.
if you go to the bottom of a lake that doesn't turn over very often, like a tropical lake, you can definitely find gray iron down there.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So that just means red rocks are high in iron, right?
Yeah.
Or were they were high in unoxidized iron before, and now they've been oxidized.
Yes. Now, I'm not a geologist, and it's been many moons since I had geology class. But yeah, that's a great rule of thumb. There are some red rocks that aren't iron. Olivine can have a red color, that kind of stuff. So I'm gonna go with yes for the purpose of this class. We'll say sure. maybe ask a geologist. Sorry. Okay. Well, I'll share my screen again and bring up our course website. Now, this is available to you with a little link right at the beginning of our general channel. I would bookmark this if I were you, for sure, because we're going to be using this a lot. So I'm just going to kind of walk you through the website. It's up to you to actually use it and follow it. We've got our syllabus here. We've got shared course notes. So anyone with this link can contribute to this. Okay. This is from the last time I taught it. And let's see, people made it a whole 2 weeks before they just crapped out and stopped sharing notes. Kind of a bummer because you get to use this for your test. So maybe do your part, contribute to this for the greater good. So we got
So
shared
are
course
your
notes.
tests open note?
Yeah,
Or is it just these notes that are open?
they're open everything. Internet, notes, textbook. Here's why, because the real world, nobody says close notes. It's never happened to me once, okay? The Respondus lockdown browser, I think it's creepy, right? Some stranger in India, like staring into your bedroom, no thank you. Tracking your eye movements, forget it. I don't play that, so there's still like multiple choice. It's not super hard. You've been misled by people who rant and rave about my exams. Okay. All right, we've got the reading list here for your choice. We'll talk about that in a second, but that'll bring up a list of books that you can write a review of for points. We've got advice from former students, and then boom, right here into our week 1. All right, so this goes over our topics, your reading assignment, and then it's got assignments that are due with their due date and everything. Pre-test due Friday at 11:59 p.m., for example, and just kind of general advice for this week. So we're here in week 1. Every week we'll have major topics. You click on that, and this is basically your study guide for the exams. These are the topics that I'm going to focus on. It's not exhaustive, of course, but it's what I'm focusing on for exams. You got your slides, so you click on that, and you've got access to all the slides we cover in here. And then some extra resources. So these are actually pretty helpful for more information about what we talked about. So like here's a website about the rise of oxygen, kind of tracing it through early Earth's history. They tend to be pretty short reads. How to read phylogenies, how to build them, mechanisms of antibiotic resistance. So you can see the kind of stuff we're covering here in the first week. Now, not all of you have the textbook yet, probably. And you do have a quiz on it, due 10 p.m. Friday. Okay, so I've gone ahead and made a PDF of the first 2 chapters just to get you started, so if your book hasn't shown up from Amazon or whatever. So there's a link to that, so you can start your reading. All right, so let's take a look at the syllabus. All right, boilerplate stuff. I really strongly prefer that you just communicate with me here on Teams, because Canvas can be really slow. Sometimes it takes like 2 or 3 days for it to send me a notification that I've got a message on there. So if you get in touch with me on there, I will respond, but it may take forever. If you respond here on Teams, it's going to be a lot faster. The textbook is Campbell's Biology. There's a custom edition in the bookstore that'll work. It's pretty cheap, but I've also given you a link to a nice cheap option anything that's 8th edition or newer, I found 9th edition, right, $12. That'll work. Okay. So no need to spend $150 or $300 for the new full book. Okay. All right. Where are we? Boilerplate, boilerplate, and okay. The way this class works is I want you to read the reading assignment before the week that we talk about stuff. All right, so it's going to go like this. For next week, you'll have a reading assignment. I want you to read it before Monday, and you do your quiz and turn it in on Canvas before class on Monday. So that's your incentive to get the reading done ahead of time, is that you quizzed on the reading before we talk about that material in class. These quizzes are from the textbook. So not about any outside material, whatever. From reading those chapters, you can take the quiz. They are timed, so don't go in there with your textbook having not read it and just think you're going to find the answers. You won't have enough time to do that. You need to know some stuff ahead of time. Okay. So you do your readings ahead of time, you take your quiz, then we talk about the material that week. Okay. We have 4 exams in here, including the final. We've got pre and post test, 50 points each. The first one's due this Friday. It's on Canvas. Everyone who turns it in on time gets 50 out of 50 because it's a pre-test. All right. The post test will be at the end of the semester, and you'll actually get your real grade for that. Just don't miss this. Our exams will also be on Canvas. For those, the due dates are on Canvas and also on our website. We got our 10 reading quizzes. Remember, those come before we talk about the material. And then we've got your choice points. So these are kind of up to you. You get to pick and choose which way you earn points. The way I grade is set up on a point-based system. If you get 600 points, you get an A. All right? If you get 599, you don't. All right, so I'm not doing percentages here. So you owe me 700 points. 700 points. However you get those points, it's up to you. Okay. So we've got our pre-test there. That's 50 points already on your way to the 600 to get your A. Okay. We've got our 10 reading quizzes. That's another 100 points. And then we've got your choice points. Those are all up on Canvas. They vary in the amount of points that they are worth, but you owe me 50 of those by midterm and another 50 by the end of the semester. Now, you can also do more than 100 points of your choice, and that counts as extra. Okay. You can do up to 50 extra points of the your choice assignments, assuming that you actually got your 50 in by midterm. Okay, so if you read through this, you'll see what happens if you don't. Okay. There's a lot of different types of assignments. You don't have to read a book. Okay. It's probably the easiest way of earning these points is a book review, but you can get 100 points without reading a book. But the book reviews are kind of the main way that people get points really fast in here. You can turn these in at any point. So if I were you, I'd get a book now from our list and start reading it. If you pick one that's worth more than 50 points, boom, you're already done for midterm, and you're well on your way towards getting bonus credit. Okay. Any questions about this now?
What are the variety of assignments that will be available?
Okay, so I'm going to see if I can get into Canvas. So these are already available for you. 1620. So here's our Canvas course. Your first one, this is due January 15th. Just is to make sure that you know how to use the website and have looked through the syllabus. That's worth 10 points. It's the only one that's not optional, right? Do that one right now. Okay, so there you got 10 points towards your 600 already. If I go to the assignments tab, so here's your first one, getting to know the course. There's Citation Manager, teaches you how to use the Citation Manager so you're not in the dark ages anymore, looking for academic research. We've got critical book reports. Each of the books is worth varying amounts of points. We've got the Mauna Loa Observatory, which is an online thing you can do. 2 movies, one about Antarctica, one about ancient humans and when they were interacting with Neanderthals. We've got a podcast. We've got make a PowerPoint slide about a human parasite. We've got interview different people that use biology in their career. Click on any of these and there's the instructions. So it should be pretty clear from that.
So we just have to get 50 points of those by midterm?
By midterm. Now, if you turn in 40 points by midterm, that's fine. It's not going to count off, but that decreases the amount of bonus points you can get. So right now, everyone's eligible for 50 bonus points. If you turn in 40 points by midterm, now you're only eligible for 40 bonus points. Okay. So every semester, there's somebody that gets 150 points before midterm, and they're just done with homework for this class for the rest of the semester. That's that's what you want.
I was gonna ask, are any of them locked, or can we just do them however much as we want at our own?
They are open. Yep. So you can get started on those right now. It's usually people start out with good intentions, like I'm going to get 150 points this first month, and 3 or 4 manage to pull it off, and the rest kind of slide, and then they're hurting by the end of the semester because that's when all their other classes have like final projects and stuff. So in here, I let you front load the workload if you want to. Okay. And believe me, you want to because you're taking other classes, obviously, and those tend to be heavier towards the end of the semester. Okay. So the link for advice from former students is worth looking through. Read the chapters before every class. Do the questions at the end of the chapter in the chapter summary. Take time to learn the principles. This is not a memorizing class. Okay, because you can Google the definition of words or whatever, that's fine. I'm more concerned about the principles of biology, okay? Talk to your professor and figure out why you sucked on the first exam so you don't continue the rest of the semester like a wounded gazelle waiting to die. This is good advice. I'm here for you. If you do bomb the first exam, that's not the end of the world. Plenty of people bomb the first exam still come out with an A in the class because of that 50 bonus points that's available. It kind of lets you have a learning experience, if you want to call it that. Okay. So if you want an A, here's what to do. Seriously, I mean it, do the readings before you come to class. The lectures are going to make a whole lot more sense if you've already read the chapters that we're talking about. As in, you won't be like falling behind, drowning, trying to keep up, figure out what we're talking about. You'll be able to actually participate in a discussion and learn some stuff. Okay. Pay attention. Definitely come to class so that you can ask questions. That's especially important in the online environment, right? I took a class last semester to kind of see what a live stream class was like, and it sucked. Big time. I hated it. And the teacher even did a good job. So I know that motivation can kind of wane if you kind of sign in. I found myself doing this, like, oh, I got to cook dinner, but it's class time. Well, I'll sign in and just leave my video off and not ask any questions. And before I know it, I'm not even paying attention anymore to the lesson, and I'm just like cooking dinner. And it meant that my learning suffered and my dinner suffered, right? So show up, be here, be present, and ask questions. I would start reading one of those books right now. There's a book on there called The Ancestor's Tale. It's awesome. It would be the textbook I would use for this class if it covered more about plants. We have to talk more about plants than it talks about, but I think it's the perfect biology textbook. It doesn't read like a textbook though. It's just a bunch of cool stories about interesting critters. Okay. It's like 800 pages long. That's a big chunk of reading, but it's also worth 80 points. Okay. I think every biology student should read that book because it's awesome. I wound up reading it in like 3 days because I couldn't put it down. I stayed up until 3 a.m. every night. It's so awesome. So start reading one of those now. If you do a chapter a day, you can have it done by midterm. Okay. I have had problems with this in the past. People plagiarizing, getting other people to write their reports, or reading the first and last chapters and trying to like write a review on that. At this point in my career, I've read hundreds of reviews for each one of these books. I know if you've read it or not, okay? If you have a draft, you can go ahead and submit that to Canvas. I will give you feedback on it and say, okay, well, you didn't make the full 50 points. I'm going to give you 40. Here's what I would fix. You can just resubmit and I'll give you your full credit. Okay, so submit early, submit often to try to get that full credit. And do not, under any circumstances, please email me at the end of the semester saying, what can I do to get 3 extra points? Has anyone found this in the syllabus? What will I do if I get this email?
Dock 2 points.
That's right. I charge you 2 points for emailing me this. It's never been the case where that's actually harmed somebody's grade, but it's like a slap in the face to you. So I take great pleasure in it. Don't do this. It's really easy. An 85.7% is an A in here. It's 600 out of 700. You owe me 600 points. There's plenty of ways to get them if you don't slack off. Okay. Questions? We've got a couple minutes left, and I'm free to stay after for a few more if people still have questions. But I'll turn it over to y'all at this point.
Real quick, all that information you were showing us, can we find that on like Canvas?
Yeah, well, it's actually on our website also. If you just click, the slides, you can download the slides and it has all the stuff we just looked at.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, the website, please use it. It does have a little tracker on there, and I try to see how many students you're using. I'm not like hacking into your computer or whatever. It's just give me a number of unique visitors, and it's never the full class, right? There's always like a third of the class that has never once gone to the website. That was a pain in the butt to make. It's there to help you. Use it.
So I know you go for it.
I just wanted to pop in and say that in the study session channel,
I forgot.
I did 2 polls to figure out like which days work best for you guys. So when we're done, if you want to head over there and look at that, that'd be cool.
I forgot to introduce Emma. This is the first time I had a TA here at UVU, so sorry, Emma.
That's okay.
Emma is our TA. She's got an introduction video on our Teams channel for you. She's got her own little channel there. She's going to be helping with study sessions. She's going to be an awesome resource for you. Emma is one of our STEM scholarship students, so she's got a grant from the National Science Foundation to do research. You want to take a second and mention what you've learned about brine shrimp so far? If you have, with pandemic coming.
Yeah. I haven't done a ton since COVID started, but also part of research is just reading a lot rather than being in the lab. So I've done a lot of that, but I'm studying brine shrimp in the Great Salt Lake and then their like mortality rates. And then hopefully when I go back, I will have a new kind of setup where I have some of them under light, like 24/7, some of them half a day, and some of them no light, and then see how that affects their mortality rate as well. So just kind of
So
do that.
I'm just gonna say for you that students can ask you about research experiences too, whether you like it or not, Emma.
Okay.
Because now is the time when you're like a sophomore or whatever. That's the time to get into doing research. So we can talk more about that. We're out of time right now, but Emma's going to be a great resource for you to ask about doing undergrad research also.
Yeah.
All right, anyone else? I'll stick around for a couple minutes in case people have lingering questions.
I do have a question. So
Great.
I know you talked about your choice points, and I got confused on something. So when I read through the syllabus, I was thinking that your choice points are like extra credit points just in general, right?
Anything over 100.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense.
Up to 50. So you can earn 150 your choice points. I'm only grading based on 100. Like 100 possible, basically.
That makes sense.
But the really important thing is that you do have to have 50 by midterm if you want to get any bonus. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks.
All right.
I
Well,
had a question
as well. Oh,
yeah.
Sorry. With the
Go
your
ahead.
choice points as well, I like on the list you showed us, is that just one? Or can you keep doing the same some of them multiple times? Like, does that make sense?
The interviews, you can do up to 3. So 3 different professions. And the instructions and details about that are in Canvas. And the book reports, you can do as many books as you want.
Okay.
Yeah. Some of these may only take like 30 minutes to get 10 points or whatever. And so some people like that. Some people like to get big chunks of points by reading a book and turning in a review. So it's up to you.
Okay.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I just had a question about once I have chosen a book, what do students usually like? Do they buy it on Amazon? Is it free online?
Our library has, I think, every single one of these books.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Okay.
And they should have multiple copies. I told them to prepare for it, so we'll see. I mean, there's a lot of students in this class, so I don't know if you're going to get a library copy or not.
Okay.
But public libraries also are a good option.
Perfect.
Some of these books, are only $5 on Amazon, so maybe you just want to go that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially if you got Prime shipping. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So on those books, is there a way to see how many points they're worth?
Yeah, well, let me show you. It is a bit hidden, I suppose. So on the website here, if you go to the reading list, it'll bring them up. Right here, it says how many points they're worth in the notes under each one.
Thank you.
And the number of pages.
And then the pre-test quiz thing for Friday, it says it's locked until Friday morning. Is there any way it can be unlocked, or is that just a thing?
That's just a thing. You got all day. You should have like basically 24 hours to get it done.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
All right, well, I guess I'll see you all on Wednesday.
I had one more question. Sorry.
No problem.
Are you going to post recordings of the lectures on Canvas or the website?
The website, and they're all going to be available here in Teams. Teams is probably the easiest way, but what I will do is put them down here in resources. So you'll just see another one pop up after that week. Like, here's our recording part 1, 2, and 3. Yeah.
Okay, follow-up question. What's your attendance policy? Do we need to email you if we can't make it to class or what?
No.
Okay.
My attendance policy is you really will do better like a letter grade better if you show up rather than just try to watch the videos. And so it's
Be
on
interactive.
you. Yeah, it's on you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks.